I hope this comes across the right way. Like when people
Uh-oh.
ask me about Kasey,
Yeah.
one of the ways that I tend to describe Kasey is,
hi, everybody. I'm Cami Kaos.
and I am Rick Turoczy, and we, as you know, are mildly interesting people. That's why we go out of our way every week to find people far more interesting than us to join us on the show. These folks may not be familiar to you, but rest assured, they're famous to us. Cami, who is our guest this week?
I feel like saying welcome back after this long departure, but I realized that hopefully for y'all it hasn't been a long departure.
Seamless.
And you haven't even noticed because we pre-recorded episodes and I'm just behind the times. But what do we have today, Rick? I will tell you. We have a guest that we discussed in the early days of the podcast of bringing her on the show. And we just kind of waited for a while and then we tried to book and then life happened and we didn't book, but we finally have her. This is so exciting. We have a person who is a serial entrepreneur, shocking, I know, a lifelong learner, but someone who has taken that inspiration to learn things and gather knowledge and not just use it for her own benefit, but to share it with other entrepreneurs and just other folks in the world to make sure that they have the same knowledge and information that she has and to make their lives better and easier. And so with that in mind, I would love to introduce all of you to the amazing Kasey Jones. But before I let Kasey talk, I will say we're going to have to discuss later that you share a name with my favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles character. So, just saying.
Yeah. I share a name with a bunch of characters. It turns out. There's also spells the same way as I do. There is a 20-something Black man who writes books of poetry.
Oh,
I think in Alabama. And I've had both my parents and I have gotten multiple phone calls from companies trying to help us promote our book of poems. And what I think is really entertaining about it is they did so much research to find my parents' phone number, but not enough research to figure out I'm a middle-aged white lady and not a young Black man. But what are you going to do? But yeah, he writes books of poetry about hummingbirds. So in case you're in the market for something.
We might need to have the other Kasey Jones on the show because I love poetry and hummingbirds. Kasey Jones in Alabama, author of a poetry book about hummingbirds. Send me an email. Hit us up. We would like to talk to you. But right now, we're going to talk to the other Kasey Jones, the one that is on the call right now.
It is Kasey, really, really good to be here.
What are you up to these days?
A couple things. So I guess the two main things that I'm doing these days are kind of growth strategy and coaching for early stage entrepreneurs and small business entrepreneurs. And then also kind of personal brand training, coaching. I've teamed up with a really, really badass writer and creator, Erica Schneider, who you guys would love. She and I bonded because we got into a bunch of fights with Twitter bros in about their broiness, and in particular the one that really got us fired up where we were like, should we do something? And we got on a call together and then decided to start a whole business together. Was a guy was like, if you want to be, I don't know, if you want to do Twitter awesome or whatever, you need to follow these 53 accounts. Just quick question. What's your guess out of 53, how many were men?
53. Well, 50, but the other 3 of them were just corporations that are probably led by men.
So 52 are guaranteed men. One of them says that they're a woman, but I would bet money that it's actually a dude pretending to be a woman giving financial advice to women. But yeah, so Erica and I were like really pissed. We were like, we should do something. And we got on a call. And then while we were talking, we were like, hey, Maven really wants us to, and she goes, Maven really wants me to do a course on personal branding. And I keep starting and feeling like I'm missing something. And so I'm not doing it. And I was like, Maven literally asked me to do the same thing. And I've started it like 6 times because I feel the same way. And so we teamed up and we've started a whole business together.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We were having a discussion about this before you came on, Kasey. I think in modern day world of social media, like people make assumptions about what personal brand means. Like, how do you define personal brand? Like, how is that different than just being online?
So, well, one of the things that she and I actually just did is we kind of wrote, it's not manifesto status yet, but we're working on that. But we basically were like, the term sucks.
It does.
The term personal brand really, really sucks. And it makes everybody feel uncomfortable. I've spent years trying to figure out what is a better kind of term, and I'll try something for a little while and it just like won't really work. And so I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'll just call it personal brand because that's what literally everybody calls it. And people know that they kind of need to do the thing, but it makes them feel like shit. It makes them feel icky and awkward and like they have to be fake in order to do it. And that's not it. And especially because like our whole argument is that being your weird self online is how you differentiate, right? And and term brand doesn't make us feel that way, blah blah blah. So anyway, we have started to talk about it more as you're building a personal platform. Okay. And it's more this, it which I think is broader, it's more flexible. When I think of personal brand, I think of like, okay, it's not going to change. And guess what? Okay, at my core, there's lots of things about me that is the same that it was 10 years ago. But like so much about me, what I'm into, what I'm talking about, the way my business operates, like, I don't know, the things that I feel passionate about, like talking about is completely different than it was even just a few years ago. And so we started to think about like, okay, how can we think about this in a more holistic, flexible way that also doesn't make us feel icky? So we've been referring to it as personal platform. Okay. And especially because it's really like, it's not just about like my content on social media. It's like the whole, it's your entire online kind of identity.
Yeah.
And that needs to feel more expansive and it needs to feel more flexible and it needs to feel less commoditized or financially motivated.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of discussion lately, especially especially in our house, actually, but in Portland, we think a lot about like places that people move to work and people who are in, especially in tech startups and stuff. Yeah, you're going to move to the Silicon Valley, right? Everyone's going to move to California. There are hubs you're going to go to work on different kinds of things. People, by and large, don't move to Portland. And I'm reiterating something that I have heard Rick say a million times. This is not my idea. People don't move to Portland to work here. People move to Portland because there's something that they love here. There's someone that they love here. They can get to the mountain, the oceans, the river, all within 20 minutes. We've got a great food, all of these things. And when I think about that, and I think about personal branding, what I think about is so many people, their personal branding is not who they are, it's what they do for a living.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's the thing that always really sticks with me about personal branding. It's got the word personal in it. Branding, platform, you can change whatever that last word is, and that's the one that keeps changing. But anytime someone uses the word personal, I want that to be personal. I don't want to know how you make your money. I mean, maybe I do if you're going to do like, example, Maple XO, they make their money by recycling skateboards and selling those amazing products online. That's not a personal brand, that's a business. Do I want to know more about the amazing people at Maple XO? Absolutely, I do. Is that part of their personal brand? Absolutely, it is. Is personal brand the same thing as what you're doing to make money? No. How do you drill that? I can't get people to listen and understand that. How do you get people to hear that?
So I think the big thing is, and I thought this for a while when it comes to kind of our online identity and the value of being online and kind of showing up authentically, is it's really relationship building at scale. I mean, like, genuinely, some of my closest friends, okay, Erica, my business partner, I am literally flying to New York this Friday to go meet her for the first time in person. We've been in business together for a year. Like, some of my closest, dearest friends, I've literally never met in person because we met online. And there's something so cool and weird and awesome about that. But it's also when we think about how we do, when we navigate life, but also when we navigate capitalism and like buying stuff or selling stuff, it's online, but B, it is much more about the people, right? Like, we care a lot more about the story behind the product or service than the product or service itself. So what I say all the time, and people often will get very annoyed when I first say this, and then they start to think about it and they realize, like, she might be onto something. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care what it is. What you do for a living, what your business does, what your company does, whatever. There are at least a dozen if you're in the tech space, but it's probably more like hundreds or even thousands of people or businesses that do basically the exact same thing. They deliver basically the same results in really similar ways. And the only difference is how you make them feel while you do it. And that is who you are. It's your vibe. It's your energy. It's your values. It is who you are. And if you aren't bringing that to like how you talk about what you do, then you are leaving money on the table. You're not finding the kinds of customers that will absolutely be like freakishly obsessed with what you do. Because most of the time, right, like you look at, and especially if you look at like more old school industries, you can pick any industry and you go look at 50 websites. They'll all talk about how they have the best customer service or customer experience. They have great prices, and they deliver great results. Okay, like that's not differentiated. Like, how does somebody choose between that? And instead, you've got to really think about like, okay, what makes your business different? And P.S., the thing that's going to make your business different is what makes you different. What is weird about you, right? One of my favorite stories to tell around this, one of the people who is genuinely like one of my closest, dearest friends, I've never met him in person. This guy, Walker McKay, he does sales training. He is out of Columbia, South Carolina. When I first met him, he asked me to be on his podcast. We get on this call. You get this instant, like typical good old boy Southern vibe from him. He's got a gap between his teeth. He's got a big old booming Southern accent. And he's a sales guy. And so we get on the call and I immediately was like, I got your number, right? We're chit-chatting. And he says something about God. And then he goes, he, she, they, whatever. And keeps talking. And I was like, oh, okay.
I did not have that number.
Did not expect that, right? And one of the things he does that I love, he curses. One of the reasons why we bonded is he curses like a sailor also. And literally, first of all, like his whole, the course he has, his whole consulting is no BS sales. And he curses all throughout it. And every contract he makes a new client sign, they have to initial a clause that literally says, like, you are okay that I will curse in meetings with you and meetings with your team. If you ever put me on speakerphone and there's someone else in the room who doesn't like that I curse, it's your fault, not mine. If you want me not to curse, we can talk about it, but it will cost you 3 times more. And they literally have to initial that clause before they sign the contract. And that's one of those little things where you're like, no, you can lean into what makes you different in a way that makes people freaking love you for it.
Mm-hmm.
And they remember it. And that's like, but like, you know, and he's a phenomenal sales trainer, but I bet there's like 1,000 other sales trainers that do basically the same thing he does.
Yep.
Yeah, but they don't cuss
because of that. Yeah, they don't cuss. They don't wonder if God is a he, she, or they. Like, I mean, it's just, you get this like weird little vibe. Like, that's the shit. And like, I think there's not enough about when we talk about personal brand or whatever we call it that talks about the fact that like, if you're doing it right, you are embracing your weirdness and like amplifying that and celebrating that. And too much of it is, you know, giving you templates to use for your social media content and making you sound like everyone else. And that's fucking boring. And it's really not that effective.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rant over.
No,
rant
away. Well, and it kind of touches on something that I wanted to ask you about. And if you don't have a specific response, that's fine, because it's a little bit of an odd question. But like, so much of what we see in your world, speaking of lack of differentiation, is people telling you how to do a thing, or this is a thing you have to do, or this is a thing you should be doing. Like, to me, one of the most critical elements of personal platform is what you choose not to do, or where you don't engage, right? So like, how do you help people understand that aspect, that it's not just what you do, but it's also what you like? It's I'm not gonna tone down my language. This is who I am, and this is how I'm gonna do it. Like, how do you help people through that?
So this is the thing that I think is hard to talk about, but honestly why I actually really love this work, because I actually think it's really, really meaningful in ways that most of the content around it doesn't explain. There is no easy answer to deciding what you will or will not do. It is this process of, honestly, it's kind of like life, trial and error, where sometimes you're going to say something, you're going to respond to someone, you're going to get angry at someone on there, and afterwards you think, you know what, that felt awful, and that didn't feel right, and I don't want to do that again. I don't like that. And what's interesting is it's always evolving. So, you know, we're talking a little bit about kind of bro culture and stuff like that. And like, I've been raging about that on social media for like 5 years. Erica, my business partner, she's been raging about it on social media for a little over a year. So she is still super fired up. And we had to have this conversation where I was like, I get upset about it, but I'm done raging about it. I'm like too old. Like this middle-aged lady needs to like pass the torch to other people. I will still support people. I will still talk about this, but I'm not going to like get in fights, because it's not right for me anymore.
Yeah.
And so what's fascinating is like, you evolve over time. And so you have to constantly be looking at like,
we're not supposed to be the same person that we've been our entire life.
Oh my God. You're a flip-flopper, Cami.
Consistency.
Like that,
come on.
Consistency. But like, that's the thing. And I think that what is fascinating to me is, and when we talk to people who've like gone through our course and that we've worked with, what's really, really interesting is all of them, you know, especially the ones who have been like the most successful, you look at like the testimonials they give us and they'll be like, yeah, I learned how to write better social media content, but that's kind of a drop in the bucket. What I actually learned was how to own my unique point of view online, even to know what it was. And all of them will be like, I can't, it's really hard for me to even explain this, but I'm so much more confident, not just on social media, but in life, because it forces you to kind of get clear on like, what am I willing to get in a fight about online? What am I not? Like, what do I care about? What do I not? What gets me fired up? What leaves me meh? And you start to learn more and more about kind of who you are in this sort of broader world and like who you want to be and how you want to sort of interact with people. And I sometimes feel a little silly, say, like getting so, I don't know, feeling like social media and engaging in this way can be such like a deep exercise of personal discovery, but it really can. And I think it's kind of beautiful.
That makes a lot of sense. Olden days, back in the olden days, before the internet, what we had access to on a person was either what they told us, what someone else we personally know told us, or what we managed to dig up using like a private investigator or checking your doctor's files or doing some really shady shit people that you should not be doing.
Yeah.
Some espionage.
Some espionage. Let's do capitalism and espionage. I don't want to do either of those things. So just that was a joke. I'm fine with people doing capitalism, and I'm fine with people doing espionage if they're doing it ethically. I'm sure there's an ethical way to do espionage. I'm just not cut out for that. It's very stressful.
Yeah.
That's not what I was saying, though. What I was saying was that we used to only have the information available to us about a person when we received that information. And all of us grew up at a time in which that was true. You wanted a book, you go to the library, you wanted to know about a person, you asked them a question, you called their mom, you asked their boss. And now we have all of this information available online, but we also have very little ability to fact check things that are said and done by individual people.
Yeah.
And I have personally known people who are like, I can say whatever I want to as my personal brand because it doesn't matter. Like, I can say whatever I want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be true. It's aspirational. Or I'm marketing. This is for my business. And I always feel like that's going to bite people in the ass. And when it doesn't bite people in the ass, I am truly disappointed. I'll be honest.
Like, here's the thing. I think that it does bite people in the ass even when they don't know it. Because here's the thing. We have really good bullshit detectors, like much better than we used to because we see so much of it, let's be real.
Yeah.
And what winds up happening is, no, it doesn't mean that there's going to be some like scandal where someone's going to be caught for lying, because most people no one cares enough about whatever their petty little lies to make it a thing. But it does mean that, like, you know, someone that was considering doing work with them sees their content online and is like, it doesn't feel right to me. I'm not gonna. Yeah. And I think the thing that I think about all of this and this transition that you just kind of described of going from, you have to ask a person a question or you have to ask someone else about them. It means that, you know, to now where you can, you know, create a lot more content or a more, I don't know, robust view of who you are and what you're about. I think the thing that's cool about it is we do have more agency in all of that. Like I think about this from like a woman's perspective a lot. Cami, I'm sure, you know, you and I grew up in the age of like when we were cautioned about our reputation and shit like that. And
what will they think?
What will they think? You know, and that's one of those things where it's like, that was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like if someone had the wrong impression about you, it could literally like it could ruin your life. It could have a huge impact. And we didn't have much recourse of like how you seize control back of what people think of you or who, you know, what you are known as. And that's fucked up. And like, let's be real. I think there's also lots of downside to where we are now, where it's like, you know, you can not be thinking and someone can find information about you that is damaging, or they can misinterpret it. So my business partner, Erica, she posted something on, I don't know, I think LinkedIn, because she was going on vacation. She's married to an English woman whose parents retired to Greece, and they're not wealthy. Like, they don't have a lot of money. They like run a tiny little Airbnb on like, or a bed and breakfast on like a tiny little island in southern Greece. But she posted this thing like, oh, about being there. You know, it's great when you have in-laws who live in Greece. And it got picked up by some subreddit about Trustafarians.
Oh.
And she got like threats and it was like totally dragged. And she was in Greece, so she wasn't even paying attention. And literally, like, someone who she didn't even know saw it, went and found her, sent her a DM or an email being like, I don't know if you know that this is happening, but like, you need to get like, and it was really, really awful.
Yeah.
And since then, she's been like, you know, for a while, she didn't share anything personal and was very wary about it. So it's like a lot of bad shit can still happen that is like totally not deserved. Whatever, we hear all about cancel culture, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, we have a lot more control than we did. And we have more sort of agency to be able to sort of tell the world, stake our claim of like, who are we? What are we about? What matters to us? And to build a life around that rather than, I don't know, what our reputation might be.
Mm-hmm.
Before we move on, I just want to say, when you and Erica are finished with the course, can you please let everyone know where they're going to be able to find it?
Yes.
Yes. No. Can you tell like where if they want to go look for it?
Okay.
Tell us.
So
they hear
the
you.
The existing course now is, if you go to impactfulsocialwriting.com, that's the existing course, but we're building a new one. If you give us our email on that, you can get on the list, or if you follow us on social media, you can find all of this stuff.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll link that up. Kasey, as we shift gears a little bit, when I hope this comes across the right way. Like when people ask me about Kasey, one of the ways that I tend to describe Kasey is authentically confident. Like, you don't put on airs, you don't come across as like overbearingly confident. You're just like, wow, like, that is a confident person, and in a really compelling way. Where does that come from? Where did that come from? Like, was that something little Kasey learned? Was there somebody who inspired you? Like, where does that energy and that part of your being come from?
Before you answer, though, I want the first part of the answer to that question is, he does use the word authentically. But does it feel right to you, that perception of your confidence?
So what I think is very interesting about the word confident, I've learned a really interesting distinction not that long ago, maybe a year or two ago. And I don't even learn this, but where they made a distinction between confidence and self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've always been a pretty confident person, and I'll explain where that comes from. I had horrible low self-esteem for years and years and years. But there are certain situations where I feel more confident. And I could be confident and give this impression that I'm like navigating the world from this like self-confident kind of space, even, and I could do that even at the same time when I was so insecure, like so insecure and so filled with the self-loathing. And like anytime someone gave me a compliment, the immediate response would be this like really long, incredibly awkward, like self-deprecating kind of speech afterwards. And I have kind of healed that for the most part. And now I think I have a very healthy self-esteem and am very confident. I think the confidence, so I know people will be like, oh, you can't fake it till you make it. Like, yeah, you fucking can. Yeah, you totally can. And I grew up in a family where like image mattered more than anything else. Like when people meet my parents, they will always be like, oh God, your parents must have been like so hard on you about your grades. And I was like, they didn't give a shit. They really didn't. Like I got really good grades, but they cared more about my ability to like charm their friends at a cocktail party. And I was always really good at that. And so I was a little bit of like a performer. And then I also was a total theater nerd. And so I was a total performer. And so I think that's a big part of it. I will also say, like, I was very lucky growing up that I did well in school without trying very hard. And so I also was very confident in class.
Mm-hmm.
When I got out of class, then I would be really, really, really painfully awkward in social situations. And then people would be like, and honestly, like Reed College was deeply painful for me because I'd be super confident in class and so awkward in social situations. And then they would interpret that as me being, I'm quoting, bitchy and aloof. And so they would think that it was not me being awkward. They'd be like, oh, I know her. She's really confident. So she just thinks she's better than us.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me years to realize that that's how people, because I am confident in certain aspects, they don't understand when I'm being awkward and insecure. And so they think it's me being bitchy and aloof. That was like the common thing. And it took a really long time for me to figure out how to navigate that. And now I back to us talking about oversharing. I just overshare how awkward I am in social situations so that people then don't take it personally that I go to the event and like stand at the food table and then do the Irish goodbye when no one's paying attention.
Way too many feelings about the similarities between our youths and our social interactions right now. Just going to put that out there. And I want to say for folks who may perceive Kasey or anyone else as being bitchy and aloof or not caring, when you are in a structured environment, such as a classroom, it's easy to understand what is expected of you and perform appropriately. When you are in a social situation, the entire thing is a huge unknown.
It's very stressful. Yeah. It's very, very stressful.
Yeah. And I similarly have I will tell anyone on the planet that I have an anxiety disorder. And I do have an anxiety disorder. And you know what? I like it when people know I have an anxiety disorder because I am anxious that everything I do is going to make someone think I dislike them, someone think I'm mean, someone think I'm insert anything other than anxious. I don't want anyone to think that. And so, yeah, you just gave me a lot of feelings is what I'm saying. Feelings. Well, and it's funny. It's incredibly admirable that you can identify that switch between self-confidence and self-esteem. And I wish others understood that as well.
Oh, when I first, and I'll be honest, I think it was a TikTok video now that I'm thinking about it. Oh, I learned so much about my own psyche from TikTok. But genuinely, I remember when I was like, oh my God, those aren't the same thing. And I was like, oh. And it also helped me where I really grappled with this, I don't know, embracing and like accepting that I was confident and also insecure. Like I didn't have language that made sense to be those two things at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the other thing for me. And I don't know if you had this, but like people always assume that I'm an extrovert, and I am very extroverted in small groups and in comfortable situations. But if you like, there is my own personal version of hell is being in a room full of people I don't know and being good, and everybody is in small conversations, and I'm expected to go up to them and introduce myself and just start a conversation. Like I can't do it. And I've worked so hard to like be able to handle these situations much, much better than I used to. Like makes my skin crawl. And it's really hard to kind of explain that to people, because they'll be like, no, but I see how you interact with people. And like, you're great on a stage. You can handle a podcast interview with zero freaking prep. Like what, whatever. That's fine. I got you.
No
but like,
one on that stage is going to say anything
stranger.
Unexpected to you. When you're on that stage, you're the person in charge.
Exactly. And I know what is expected. I know what is expected. But going up to a stranger, I don't know who they are. I don't know what's going to happen. Like it's very stressful.
Yep. Again.
Yeah.
A lot of feelings. It's turning into therapy hour with Cami and Kasey.
But here's the other thing, and I actually did a post on LinkedIn about this today. Some of the things that I think really helped me with all of this is I had a few like realizations, and I did this post today that was all about making peace with people's strong reactions to me. And when you have a big personality, which I very much do, everything about me is big. I've got big hair. I'm 6 feet tall. I have a big personality. I will absolutely have the loudest laugh in the room. You get strong reactions. People, you evoke strong reactions from people. And that means sometimes people love me or they hate me. And there's like very little in between. And I used to spend a lot of time feeling awful about the people that didn't like me. And it took a long time for me to really realize, like, one, my opinion of myself matters more than anything else.
Yeah.
Two, I fuck up, don't get me wrong, but like, I'm a really nice person and I try really hard to do good in the world. And like, I will totally hurt people's feelings. I will totally drop balls. I will screw up all the time, but I never do it intentionally and I never do it with malicious intent. So like, I don't actually have to feel ashamed about anything. Yeah. And lastly, most people's strong reactions say more about them than it does about you.
That is very much what I was thinking. That's the part that I'm the most curious about. And what do you feel you learn from people when they have those incredibly strong reactions?
When people have strong negative reactions with me, it is often, this is going to sound real judgy, but I've thought a lot about this. I've had a lot of experience in this. It is usually women who are not confident. And it is women who struggle to be themselves in certain situations, or to be bold, or to have the loud laugh, or whatever the case may be. And they tend to feel like I don't know, that I'm being fake. And I think on some level that guess or that assessment on their part makes them feel better about their struggles to navigate that. And and this is lots of conversations with other people and a little bit of speculation, but like I think that's often what it is about with me anyway.
And at that point, it's really hard to understand that dislike or that negative reaction comes from a place of self
Yeah.
issue. It's really hard to be
Oh,
like, oh, I don't like you. Well, fine, I don't like you then. It's more just
well,
like, really, I wish you well.
it's one of those things I've had to learn. They're the people that drive me nuts. The people where I'm like, oh, they're perfectly nice. I have learned that it's always things that I really don't like in myself. So there's something about them that reminds me of a part of me that I struggle with.
Yeah.
And so I know people that I think are trying too hard to be liked make me extraordinarily uncomfortable. And I know it is because I spent most of my childhood not feeling liked and trying really hard to get people to like me. And so there's this thing inside of me. And so I know, like, I know that about myself. So I don't fault someone for feeling that way either.
Or we're going to change gears again because I want to know
Okay.
what made you decide to be an entrepreneur. That is a crazy, dangerous, in the dark, all alone, huddled in a corner, kind of like
Cami,
difficult decision to make. So why did you do it?
Would any of us have done it if we knew before how hard it was going to be?
Yes, people
I
are
don't know.
gluttons for punishment.
I think, like the naivete is a true blessing.
Okay.
But honestly, how I wound up doing it, I think it was a unique set of circumstances. So, I had been invited to go to Beirut, Lebanon for like 10 days, David Ewald, to go lead a series of like go to market strategy workshops for the first ever partnership between the UN and a startup accelerator. And
Nice.
it is a weird way that I got invited. And I flew over there with like peak imposter syndrome. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I have like literally nothing to tell these people. This is going to be a disaster. And I got there and I really helped. And I had amazing conversations with founders. And literally, I think it was maybe 8 months, a year ago, one of the founders I worked with there sent me a message and was like, hey, like, I know we haven't talked in 6 years or whatever. He was like, but we just got acquired. And I needed to send you a message and say thank you because the advice you gave us when you were in Beirut is a huge part of why we were able to get to this point. And I was like, So I had this incredible experience. And I was like on a total high. Like it was amazing. It was exhilarating. I loved every freaking second of it. I felt good about it. And literally my first day back in the office of the tiny little startup that I was head of marketing for, the founders told us that they'd run out of money the day I got back. And so I was like, oh shit. Okay. And I thought it was probably coming. And so I'd been thinking already. And the very first phone call I made, because it was a woman another entrepreneur who we'd been partnering on a project, and I'd kind of been ghosting her because I didn't know how to tell her that I thought things weren't going so well. And so I called her and I was like, hey, we're closing, things are, and I'm out of a job. And she was like, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I might go find another marketing job. I might go out on my own. And she goes, oh, if you go out on your own, I really need some marketing help. I'll be your first client.
It's less scary to go out on your own when you have that first client locked in, isn't it?
Oh my God. Yeah. And I think there's a high chance that I would have done it anyway, but it made it so obvious and like such a but duh, of course I'm going to at least give this a try.
All right. I have one more question about entrepreneurship before we move on to our mildly interesting questions. But we've already talked a lot about being a woman. We're both women. I have a unique perspective to watch startups and entrepreneurship from. I have a really deep understanding of what's happening, without ever having to have done it myself. Thank goodness. I see women and persons of color struggle so much harder, not because they don't know what they're doing, not because they don't have a brilliant idea, but because they don't have the same level of privilege and the same resources that is provided to our tech bros out there. We've talked about tech bros. You know, I love some of you very much. Rick might as well be a tech bro some days. But
no, the least broy man.
Oh my God, Rick, did you used to be a tech bro? Did you used to be a tech bro?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, like I'm recovering. It's every day. Every day you're recovering.
But I want to be clear. Like, I think bro is a culture, not a gender, right?
Yeah.
And like,
I agree. I absolutely agree. I also know that Rick is a dumb jock who likes broy things and works really hard not to be a bro because it's easy to slip into. So I'm not trying to, Rick knows this. I'm not trying to insult you or anything. He's been a member of like some bro culture stuff. Part of my favorite thing about him is that he's a flip-flopper. He used to be a bro and now he's like, I'm not a bro anymore. So obviously flip-flopper Rick. It's the growth that I have seen him undertake and inspire in other individuals. And so what I'm wondering is the difficulties.
Recovering bro.
He's a recovering bro. There you go. He's a recovering bro.
It's in remission right now. It can come back. Be careful.
Please don't. What do we need to do to keep you in remission?
Sometimes on Sundays during the fall, it might sneak back in.
Yeah,
that's how it works in our
lacrosse championships on Memorial Day.
We literally, like 2 weeks ago, spent an entire weekend watching the Little League World Series.
Oh.
So the bro runs deep in this house.
It does. And it's okay. Yeah. It's okay as long as it's like there are things about myself I don't think are fantastic. I'm not saying that it is pretty awful to be a bro, but
I mean, let's be real. I'm a bro. I drink protein shakes. I like do deadlifts at the gym. I like cold showers. Like I listen to Andrew Huberman. Like, I'm a total bro. I'm just not an asshole about it.
Yeah. So anyway, I loved this series, the small series of rants that we both went on. And Rick, thanks for letting us both persecute you as a bro and defend you as a non-bro. I really appreciated you just sitting there with your mouth shut. Just be pretty.
That's what I do.
Good job. How much of being an entrepreneur do you think is difficult because entrepreneurship is difficult, and how much of it is difficult because you're a woman? Not because there's anything wrong with being a woman, but because society has said we don't get to do certain things.
So I think there's this really complicated mix. Because it's not just what I've learned talking to other women. It's not just that we get sort of minimized or we're not celebrated in the same way or looked at with the same kind of potential, as having the same kind of potential as the men, but it's also how we've been raised to like navigate the world. So I think I talk to a lot more women. Men do this too, and I think people of color do this quite a bit. We've been taught to be incredibly independent and self-sufficient and not to ask for help.
Yeah.
And to our detriment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting with my coaching clients so I coach entrepreneurs all the time. And so the way it works is we'll have bi-weekly calls. And then I connect with them on WhatsApp, and in between calls, they can send me any messages being like, hey, I'm working on this thing. Can you take a look at this? Da, 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 da. The women and the men who have like real trauma in their backgrounds, they will almost never send me messages in between the calls. The men, they'll send me all. they're just more likely to go ask for help and feel entitled to it. And I don't mean that in a like, ugh, we hate millennials because they're so entitled. I mean, like, they feel like, oh, they deserve it. And I think everybody should feel that way.
Right.
And I think it is, so it's this whole complex thing of like how we view ourselves, how we view our interaction to the world, how we view the world's position in supporting us, and then also how the world views us. And so it is really, really complicated, and it is really freaking challenging. And it is also extraordinarily frustrating to see, at least in the venture capital world, how little progress is made.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I just want to say that I expected us to spend most of this conversation time around coaching entrepreneurs, because that's what I had the most questions about. We didn't even go there because we wound up talking about other stuff. So I think it's safe to say, Kasey, you're going to have to come back on the show. Sorry.
Okay. Yay.
Okay. And now it's time for some...
I will not refuse you.
Yay!
Awesome.
Yeah. I was about to say something that then Rick would have to edit, but it would be really funny, and I'll say it later when there's not a camera. But right now we're going to do some mildly interesting questions. Okay. We rolled our die at the very beginning of the show, and we got number 2. So the 5th question today from the big list will be question number 2. Kasey, answer these at any pace you would like. Rick will make it look later like you answered them very quickly.
Like I answered them quickly? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You can skip a question if you're stumped, but we have to come back to it.
Okay.
And now I'm going to start the questions. Question number 1. What one habit would you like to pick up over the next year?
I want to get back to being able to meditate. I used to be consistent, and I really got away from it. And as my therapist likes to tell me, I'm more of a human doing than a human being. And
wow.
Yeah. Also, P.S., real freaking common for entrepreneurs. Turns out my trauma response is flight, and how I flee is I'm just so fucking busy that I just don't have time.
I'm sorry, I can't.
That's how I do things. And so the last couple of years, my biggest focus in life has been finding ways to slow down and learn to just be. And I've gotten much better in like so many different parts of my life, but I haven't gotten back to a consistent meditation practice. And I really feel like I need that. And that would be a big kind of next step for me.
Okay, 2 things here. 1, your therapist and my coach probably need to have a conversation on this whole doing being thing, because the whole doing being conversation is like the majority of the conversation I wind up having with my coach. And every time I'm like, okay, I know I just need to be. So Reggie, if you're listening, I'm being.
Mine is always like, you don't need a plan. You don't need to create a plan for this. No, but it just feels so much better to have a plan.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. And the number 2 point, you and I should discuss meditation later. Question number 2. Would you like to know a little bit about a lot of things or a lot about one thing?
The tough thing about this question is it's like, what are you already? Like, I know a little about a lot of things. And I used to feel really, really insecure about that. And I used to really struggle to figure out how that worked with my career. And as I've gotten older, and I now realize like the fact that I know a little about so many freaking things is such a superpower for me, and it's such an advantage. And now I would not trade that for the world.
Awesome.
Thank you, liberal arts education. Yeah.
Also, fun fact, I highly recommend the book Range by David Epstein. because it's basically all about how in a world of specialists, generalists are like have the superpower, and it made me feel so much better about the fact that like I don't go deep into anything.
You are the first guest who has made the generalist specialist comment, and I love that because when I first asked the question, I was thinking about being a generalist. So thank you. I feel seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Question number 3, potentially my favorite question of all time. What do you need from the grocery store?
Oh, I need berries.
What
I
kind?
eat strawberries, like first and foremost, but all berries. Like I eat an like ungodly amount of
You're like
fruit.
a berrytarian?
Yeah, like legit. When in like peak strawberry season, like what 3 weeks in a row, we went to the Selwood farmers market and bought like a pallet. It's literally like $30 of like, I don't know, 12 pints or something. It was gone in like 4 days.
Berries.
Also, fun fact, my dogs love eating strawberry tops because I will sit on the couch and I'll like pick the little top out and eat the strawberry, and then I give one to one dog and then I give the next one to the other. And so now I've trained them that like when mom gets out the berries, they're like, yeah, we're about to get some strawberry tops. And it's like it's very I'm horrible. I'm horrible.
Give us the strawberry greens.
Yeah.
I have a question. Do you just pluck it off the top, or do I do the thumbnail dig? I like put my thumbnail and pop it up. Okay.
100%. That's the best way.
Yeah, these are important strawberry questions. Question number 4, potentially my other favorite question of all time.
Oh.
Would you like to survive the zombie apocalypse?
Yeah, 100%.
Yes. This is very good to hear for proximity reasons. Fantastic. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, and we'll have all kinds of supplies here. Like we're
yes.
Yeah.
Us as well. A little crazy.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Question number 5, which is our question that's different for every guest because we rolled the die. Kasey got number 2 on this lovely yellow die. Kasey, we're talking about books. Do you prefer a hard copy or digital?
You know, I'm shocked to say this because for the longest time I was like, "Ugh, why would you read on a Kindle?" I love my fucking Kindle. It just once I made the switch, I can't go back.
Nice.
And I read like a ridiculous amount, and so it's a cost savings and a forest savings for just cranking through it.
My guilt at preferring hard copies of books is magnificent. I will read a lot of things on Kindle, but then occasionally I will be reading a book and I'll be like, I need a hard copy.
Well, and what I do is I read fiction. I listen to nonfiction, but when I listen to a nonfiction book where I'm like, this is so good, I'm going to want to reference this. I then go buy the hard copy.
Yeah.
So that I can like then read it and like underline things and stuff like that. So I'm a little bit of a combo, but I would tear through, especially lately, I've been just tearing through fiction, and like I mean, if I bought hard copies for all of them, I would spend too much money.
Fiction I can totally do on the Kindle. It's anything that I need to highlight, reference, make margin notes. Yeah.
100%.
I usually don't discuss the answers, I realize, and I'm doing a new, different thing today. Perhaps I'm just feeling chatty.
Yeah, but I'm chatty. I didn't just give the answer. I told my whole thoughts on why that's my answer and the story behind it because, oversharing.
I like it. I dig it. I think it works. I don't want to speak for all of you, but it's my show. So, it's our show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fuck you, Rich.
Sorry, it is your show as well.
I'm just the producer. That's what I do.
Last week you said it was your show because you're the producer.
Yeah,
and I flip-flop back and forth. I don't know.
Well,
wishy-washy.
I mean, I feel like there's like pop songs that it doesn't even mention the person singing. It's just the producer. So it can go either way.
True.
It could go either way. All right.
I'm no Timbaland, I'll tell you that much. I'm just like
we are the
somebody
end.
else.
We are at the end of this episode of this podcast that questionably belongs to me or Rick or maybe both of us or
whomever.
Maybe Spike. It's probably Spike's podcast.
Don't wake him up. Just leave him be.
I shouldn't have said the name. Rick, would you like to wrap this episode up in a nice, tidy little bow?
Yes, absolutely. Kasey, as always, just a pleasure to get the chance to spend time with you. I feel lucky enough to have been both a participant and a fond observer of your journey and your growth over time. And each iteration and version of Kasey has become more and more incredible, and I look forward to continuing along your journey as you continue to grow into this new version and like new pursuits that you're chasing. As Cami said, we could sit here and talk with you for hours, so we would love to have you back. But thank you for carving out the time to hang out with us and share some of your thoughts with the audience. We really, really appreciate it.
It's my honor, and I appreciate you both so much. And like Rick, you have been a mentor and a friend throughout, but especially during periods when I really, really needed one. And I'm super grateful for you. And Cami, what the fuck? We have so much in common. Like
it's kind of spooky, right?
A lot more conversations about this.
It's really
we need to have a whole download on our childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's more and more every time I talk to you, and today I'm just like, no, too much, too creepy. Gotta find out more.
Luckily, we live really close by.
Mm-hmm. We do. It's true.
I know. It's true.
Okay, everybody, that's the show for today. I've loved having you here. I think you're all spectacular.
It was fabulous. Thank you, guys.
I hope you join us again. We'll bring Kasey back. It'll be fantastic, and we'll see you all soon.
Maybe we'll have berries. I don't know. Something.
I have some beautiful Oregon strawberries waiting in the kitchen for me. I stopped at a market in person today, primarily because I wanted the good strawberries, and you can't get the good strawberries Instacarted.
No, you can't.
No.
You can't trust people to pick out the right strawberries. It's a personal thing. Yeah.
Sad, but true. All right. Kasey, thank you so much. Rick, thank you so much. Cami.
Of course. Cami, good job. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. See you later. Bye.
Bye.